Hey guys, Hamsterwheel here with a new video, and today I'll be going over a few things that will make Classic WoW different from retail vanilla WoW. Now, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably seen that there's a lot of hype for Classic WoW, and many people can't wait to relive the old days of vanilla WoW. Thing is, it won't be just like the way it was in 2004, and here's a few reasons as to why. First thing I want to talk about is Alterac Valley. Alterac Valley is without a doubt my favorite battleground of them all, followed closely by Arathi Basin. I just love the fact that this battleground spanned 10 levels, and that there were so many extra things going on in that battleground besides just killing players of the opposing faction. Think of capping towers, handing in armor scraps, the 2 raid bosses that would help you destroy the other team, airstrikes, the list goes on and on. Matter of fact, I did Alterac Valley so much in vanilla WoW that I managed to get exalted with the Frostwolf clan and get to rank 6, that is Stoneguard, pretty much by doing Alterac Valley 90% of the time. Which, considering how much honor you'd get by just joining a pre-made and spam Warzone Gulch, was definitely not the most efficient way of ranking up in terms of PvP. So what's going to be different here? Well, here's the thing. Back then, Alterac Valley used to last hours upon hours, if not days. You would queue up for AV, fight for an hour or two, go to bed, log in the next morning, and you would be able to join the same AV again. It was an endless battle of 2 40-man raids, trying to push on and slowly but surely drive the enemy back into their main base. It wasn't until later that we discovered that in terms of honor, this wasn't the best way to do Alterac Valley. Matter of fact, it was much more efficient for both teams to just run past each other and try to rush into their main base as fast as you could and kill the enemy general. Later in the game, they added the resources mechanic, and in the pre-TBC patch, they changed the requirements for PvP gear from rank to just X amount of honor, and more importantly, battleground marks. This made it much more important to finish the battleground, which really was the final nail in the coffin for these epic Alterac Valley battles. After that, everyone's mindset just changed regarding Alterac Valley. Even on today's vanilla private servers with the old school honor decay system, everyone just uses the rush mechanic rather than having an endless push that goes on for days because, well, like I said, everyone knows by now that the rush mechanic is way better in terms of honor per hour. So in other words, I seriously doubt we're ever going to have these epic 40-hour Alterac Valley battles anymore, especially if the reinforcers mechanic is introduced right from the moment Alterac Valley goes live on Classic WoW servers. I mean, don't get me wrong, it will be really fun to experience that again, but looking at the general mindset of players today, I doubt it's ever going to happen. Next point I will be talking about is the distribution of players in each zone. What do I mean with this? Well, back when everyone was still leveling, no one really knew which zones were really good to level in and which ones weren't. This meant that players were more scattered across the world, going to every corner of the map to explore and try and find new quests to do. Nowadays, we all know what zones to level in and what zones not to level in. For instance, we all know that Alterac Mountains and Azshara are not exactly good zones to level in, because there's only a few quests in that area compared to other zones which have way more in them. Once Classic servers will go live, everyone will pretty much have access to guides on where exactly to level and what zones to go through, which, like I said, means that compared to retail vanilla, there's going to be zones where there's a large concentration of players compared to zones that are just going to feel completely barren. Next up, I want to talk about dungeons. Just like leveling, the knowledge regarding dungeons was limited, and we didn't really know yet what dungeons to run, because way back then we didn't really have any pre-raid best in slot lists. We just did dungeon X and Y, assuming you'd get good loot from those dungeons, and then assuming those items were good for your class as well. Nowadays, we obviously know a lot more. We know exactly what dungeons to do and what bosses to kill if you're, let's say, a warlock, what gear to craft, etc. This means that, again, the distribution of players doing dungeons will be a lot different. Instead of 5 people just going to Blackrock depths and clear the entire dungeon like people did in retail vanilla, you're now going to have this popping up in general chat. Looking for more Blackrock depths arena farm. Savage gladiator chest on res. Basically that means you go to Blackrock depths with a group, go to the arena, do the boss there, and if the item you wanted didn't drop, you all go outside, reset the dungeon and do it again. You see? Quite different from what people did in retail vanilla. Or how about this one? looking for more Blackrock Depths, quick Emp run, Iron Foe on res. This run is one where you just rush to the last boss, again skipping a large chunk of the dungeon, and hoping to get the one-handed mace from the Emperor. A pretty powerful item, hence why people do these types of runs all the time on vanilla private servers. This is just one example of a dungeon where people know exactly what loot to get and the fastest way to do it. Once again, there's a much bigger level of efficiency here, but because of that it means that content will be skipped and thus making it a different experience compared to retail vanilla. Another thing to take into consideration is how fast the raiding content will be cleared. In retail vanilla, it took the entire player base 154 days to defeat Ragnaros. 154 days. You think that's going to be the same on Classic WoW? Of course not. Like I said before, we all know what gear to get, so people are going to be much stronger and deal much more damage, and we all know the tactics by now. The guides are already out, there's no going in blind anymore. You can read up on any boss fight there is in vanilla and know exactly what to do before you've even stepped one foot in the dungeon or raid. Unless Blizzard will manually alter the bosses and buff them so that raids will be more challenging, the PvE content will be cleared at a record's pace. I mean, look at how fast people are clearing content on private servers. Usually it'll only take them a few days to clear the entire raid, if not the same day the raid is released. Even Naxxramas, considered to be one of the hardest raids ever, will probably be cleared in less than a couple of weeks by some hardcore raiding guilds, simply because we know everything we need to do beforehand. Last thing I want to talk about is PvP. Anyone who's going to revisit WoW after a long break from retail is going to be in for a surprise. Look, we all know that back then the skill of the average player was, well, terrible. And in these 13 years people have become better and better at the game. If you think PvP is going to be at the same level as it was back in retail, you're gonna have a bad time. Most people who will take PvP seriously will without a doubt get engineering for things like iron grenades, the goblin rocket boots, the goblin rocket helmet, the reflector trinkets, and so on. All of this which only a handful of people in retail vanilla bother to get, so just be ready, PvP is going to be a lot harder. Just look up any PvP video of people playing on private servers and compare that skill level to one of the PvP videos of retail vanilla. It's a world of difference, so if you want to engage in some good old PvP on the classic servers, you better sharpen up on those PvP skills unless you want to be a free honor kill. So there you go, a few examples of why classic WoW probably isn't going to be the same as retail vanilla WoW. I guess most of it all comes down to knowledge. We simply know much more. We know where to go, what gear to get, how to kill raid bosses, what specs are most optimal for your class, and much, much more. This means that certain quests, zones, and whatnot will simply be skipped because they're not worth it. Unlike in retail vanilla, where it was a bit of a guessing game where exactly to go and what gear was best for your class, which meant people did pretty much everything the game had to offer. And last but not least, I'd like to ask you, do you think classic WoW will be a lot different from retail vanilla? Are there any more things which will alter the experience? Let me know in the comment section below. And that's gonna do it for today. As always, I want to thank you for watching this video. I'm Hamsterwheel and have a good one.